Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to another edition, exciting edition of Under the Bonnet with Dino. Now, I get asked this question so many times, and it's a really tricky one, and I'd like to tackle it today. And let's see if I can help you. Before you restore your classic or modern classic, you have to watch this. Look, it's real stories, real restorations, real advice from someone who's lived it and living it, which is a good thing. So, welcome back to my channel. And today I'd like to tackle one of the questions I get asked more than ever. Is it worth restoring my classic car or modern classic car? Or perhaps more importantly, will I ever get my money back? The answer isn't straightforward as you may think. Some restorations make perfect financial sense and some never will. But that's the bit that excites me the most. The restorations vary so much, and I've absolutely seen everything. And sometimes it's not at all to do with money. So today I'd like to share some of my experiences after decades in the trade, restoring everything from Morris Minors to Aston Martins. And if you're thinking about restoring a classic, modern classic, or even just is the petrol engine now just a classic car? Well, hopefully this episode will save you a lot of money, a lot of heartache, and maybe, I may be able to help you make the right decision. So, the market. Well, as I've said before, the market has changed. I like to view it pre and after COVID. Back then, pre-COVID, it felt as if every single classic car was going up. And then COVID came along, people were a bit more interested in buying cars as they had nothing to do. So everybody thought, oh, I know, I can make money, or you know what, I've really wanted to buy that car. It's a bit similar to docs, really. Docs are really expensive during COVID, and they're not now, and hence there's a lot of them. Anyway, I digress. I did fortunately have a dog, a German short-haired pointer, that helped me when I got seriously ill during COVID. And so, anyway, digress. So, what's happened? The market has become far more selective. Buyers are much more knowledgeable, and the sellers are much more knowledgeable. And what has changed? Internet has changed everything. Everything is tracked, traced. You can, especially with AI now, you can track everything, and it can help you save so much time, provided you ask the right questions. So everybody knows roughly what a car is worth. The internet is a great source of knowledge. Haggerty, they are absolutely great for telling you what a car is worth. There's a new car website, it doesn't come to mind, that tells you what your classic car is worth. If I remember it by the end of the show, I'll say, as it's combining many different platforms onto one. It's not mine. I didn't think about it. I wish I did. It sounds complicated, but could, if it works, make life a little bit easier. But then again, it's all about information, isn't it? All information everywhere. And one of the important things to remember is demographics. Many of the buyers who grew up in the 1950s and 60s are now getting older. Naturally, tastes change and generations change. This doesn't mean that cars suddenly come undesirable, but demand shifts. Meanwhile, enthusiasts who grew up with the cars from the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s are now in a position to buy the cars. And that is something that they've always dreamed about. So it's an emotional thing, which I remember growing up in the 1980s and 1990s. I don't think anything really floated my boat then. No, not really. Sorry. The one reason why I'm seeing continued interest in modern that's the reason why, because modern classics are taking over from the traditional classics, and that 40-year-old law of that being a classic car is now shifting. I think it's shifting pretty fast. I think it's almost shifting towards the petrol car, because let's be right here. There's this modern electric car. You know, if you buy wisely, or should I say, well, buying an electric car, that's another completely different episode, isn't it? Because I don't think that buying an electric car is a good idea. I think the electric car has now become a commodity. It's not something that is really a tangible. Well, it is an asset, but it's a fast depreciating asset, really fast. So perhaps you should look at just leasing one, as those batteries have a lifetime. Mechanical cars, you're able to service and keep up with maintenance and things like that. So anyway, digress again like usual. So the reason why we're seeing continued interest in many modern classics is that, because traditional classics have softened. Rare cars are a different matter. Okay, so classic cars, Aston Martin DB5. It's only a good car because of James Bond. It appeared in the James Bond film, and it's iconic. So it's always going to be there. Certain Ferraris, yep, and low production Porsches, yep. And I'm saying the Porsches of a certain era, 70s and 80s, grey, 80s especially, 90s. Then you start to get a little bit tricky. Now, I don't want to upset all of you, as in my other podcast, and saying, well, I've got a great car. Well, yes, there are exceptions to the rule. I'm just trying to look at it broadly. Because those cars which I've just mentioned, the Aston Martin DB5, certain Ferraris, low production Porsches, they're in a completely different marketplace. So let's look at, so you're coming to buy your classic car, or your modern classic, your car, in fact. Let's let the petrol car. Diesels, that's all I'm prepared to say about them. But workhorses. So you come to buy your car. This is a tricky one, because the first port of call is usually an auction, isn't it? If you'll go on to eBay and different sites and auction houses, collecting cars, and the thing I hear the most is, I bought it cheaply at auction. Oh, did you? Because that's only the beginning. And so you as the buyer, or me sometimes, but I haven't done it for ages, you've got buyer's premium, You've got VAT, transport, storage if necessary, administration fees, and then suddenly that bargain doesn't look so quite cheap. You've got to ask yourself the question, why are they in an auction? Sometimes it's just a car that's moving on, or frighteningly, if it's really shiny, then you bought it cheap, there's usually a reason why. So, restoration costs. Okay. Everybody asks me, or the client, what'd you pay for the car? But very few people ask, well, how much did it cost to restore? So there's loads of information out there, and this is where people get caught out. The cheapest part of any restoration, and I can tell you this, is buying the car. That's it. Especially if you're dealing with Aston Martin, Jaguar, Porsche, or Ferrari. Parts are expensive, very expensive, especially when you're looking at Aston Martins. And there is only one. I know I'm going to upset Aston Martin owners. One and maybe another. The DB5 and DB9, which I particularly like, although mine many years ago, the crankshaft failed and actually bent, and God, to get to the crankshaft, we actually had to split the car in two, and the engine drops down, and of course all the parts are bonded, they're glued together, and it was such a it was a test of endurance, taking that car to pieces and then putting a new crankshaft in. Thankfully, Aston Martin did help, and they were on hand to do it, but it took ages. My chief technician almost had a fit when doing it, and I could see why everything had to be numbered. Of course it did, but not for the faint-hearted. But still, it's an iconic shape. I love that car, even though it failed upon me. So the Aston Martin DB5 and that one, perhaps, as it's bottomed out, are the cars to get. But again, I'm going off a tangent here. But when you look at the parts, some parts are really expensive, as I've just pointed out there, and some parts aren't available. You've got 3D printing now, which is really good. My friend in Canada actually does 3D printing. A gentleman named by the name of Harjeet. Hi, Harjeet. And he makes just fabulous bits for cars. Things that I've said it before, and we're coming close to doing a podcast regarding the Lagonda, and he's designed parts that are just not available. They're just not. You see, the thing is that you're going to be using or buying old stock that was never used and parts that in the first place, and I'll give you an example, were rubbish to begin with, and some things are just not there. If it wasn't for Harjeet making a new relay, because the relays in a Aston Martin Lagonda are mechanical, what Harjeet has done is completely transformed it, and now it works upon not mechanical anymore. It's digital. Everything works. So everything now in the Lagonda actually works, and it's just amazing. Even the engine even fires up as well. It's just astonishing, and that is even when it's just sat. But Harjeet is there aren't many Harjeets out there that are able to do this. So you have to remanufacture some parts, but some parts were rubbish to begin with. So you're going to put rubbish parts back in again. And labour isn't getting cheap either. Everything is going up. So let's look at the. I see it as this topic that is it an investment or is it emotion? If you're going down the path of investment, this is where everything changes. And some people are hoping to restore a car and make money. Example, currently where we've been filming over a year now with Bangers and Cash, restoring classic cars. And how many times have they actually made money? Sometimes they buy quite bizarrely, sorry, TV, and sometimes they get really close. And getting really close to breaking even is very exciting. That wouldn't be exciting for me if I was purchasing a classic car as an investment. The attraction was before that that you were in this situation, excuse me, where you were able to, well, you see, the internet really hadn't developed as much as it pre-COVID as it is now, because the information is out there. You could buy a car and then the purchase price would remain anonymous, and you could run a business from it, and also there's no capital gains tax on it. So and it is still now, but forget trying to really, it's going to be very difficult, I feel now, to purely buy a classic car as an investment unless you're talking about really expensive ones. And if you're buying it as an investment, that somewhere along that restoration, I guarantee you will become emotionally attached to it as you've watched it come back to life. You've made hundreds, maybe thousands of decisions, spent months, sometimes years on the project, and then suddenly it becomes much harder to sell it. So which cars can you classify, or should I say justify, a restoration? Now, this is only my opinion, and there are other cars out there. I'm just going to say ones that I feel that I'd spend money on today. If somebody asked me, where would I spend money on? Aston Martin, DB4, 5 and 6, if you can find them cheaply. But don't forget, prices are expensive. Jaguar E-Type, again, another iconic brand. But be careful. Those prices have just gone up and down, and they're down at the moment. So if you're buying it as an investment, tread easily. Mercedes Pagoda. Thing about a Pagoda is it okay? Yeah, you're buying it as an investment. I think that's a good one to go up. I prefer the next generation up. I think they're better built. The Pagoda, it's a hard drive. You look dead cool in it, and it's much smaller than you actually think. Of course, Porsche air-cooled 911. A Volvo P1800, not the ones that are the Jensen ones, which there's few and far between. I like them. They're pretty cars, but once you get in them, there's no power. They look lovely, but as the Saint used to dash around in them, no, I don't think so. Illusion broken there. and Austin Healey 3000. Again, you've got to buy well. With all those cars, it's all about buying well. The Porsche 996 Turbo is a modern classic. Yeah, I've mentioned that in the last show. The Jaguar XKR, the BMW E46, and then you've got the list of Japanese cars, the Honda S2000. I love that. Nissan Skyline GTR and Toyota Supra Mark IV. All these cars have got strong, enthusiastic followings. Good parts are available. Many good parts are available in many cases, and a genuine collector appeal. This doesn't mean every restoration makes financial sense. The price you buy is absolutely critical. And when you speak to a restoration specialist, such as ourselves at Classic Car Lab, or should I say them at Classic Car Lab, it's important to do a critical path to see how much it's going to cost. But let's not forget that it's what lurks underneath. So what cars would I think very carefully thinking about? Some cars just don't stack up financially, not because they're bad, not because restorations cost exceed what they're worth, but sometimes when you're buying, and I'm moving my pen around, I'm moving it around. I shall put my one down, pen. Some of the restoration costs exceed what a car is worth, but this is where I particularly like the restoration stories. I've got three for you here. So a standard MGB can restoration can be easily 30,000 plus. So will somebody pay over 30,000 for it? Not usually not. But here's the interesting bit. We restored an MGB. It belonged to a lady, and she got married in it, and then she had a daughter. She grew up and wanted to use the same car at the wedding. The car was rough, to say the least. However, financially it didn't make any sense, but that did not matter. It was to do with the wedding. So it's an emotional sense, and it made absolutely perfect sense. My next example is a Jaguar XJS, a wonderful gentleman and his family, and it actually makes me quite sad this when I think about it. At the time, it was you had to get the restoration done, and that was because he only had a limited time to live, and that was a critical thing. And this is absolutely true. And what we did was that we thankfully we restored the car before the gentleman died, and on the day, this is no word of a lie, we drove the car up to the gentleman's house, lovely green XJS, and we parked it up, and the ambulance was just coming down the lane, and we stood there. The gentleman came out of the house, gave it the thumbs up. He went into the ambulance, and that was it. He passed away. So he wanted to do that car before he passed, and it was critical that we did it. Again, was it down to money? No, it wasn't. It was just that's such a real emotive thing, and it will stay with me to the day I die. And finally, a Renault Clio that belonged to a customer's late brother. Uh, Again, it makes not much financial sense to restore it, but we did, and it was because of his late brother. So restorations sometimes are never really about money. It's about memories. And if you think about it, if you think about cars, they're such an emotive subject for some strange reason. Well, perhaps because it forms so much of our lives. The biggest mistakes I see is buying with your heart before your head. Never inspecting underneath. Please, please, please inspect underneath. There is a little pen that you can buy on Amazon, and it's really good. I'll put a link to it at the bottom of the page, and it indicates if you tap it on the side of the car, and it just says how much filler is in there. It unfortunately doesn't tell you about the rust, because ignoring rust is really bad. If you see micro blisters rusting and it may be really shiny, I would tend to walk away if there's lots of rust. The rust underneath chassis and wheel arches, they can grow into massive, massive costs, and ignoring it is very, very bad. And buying the cheapest example is not the best. Believing something is fully restored doesn't matter. It doesn't automatically mean it's restored properly. At the end of this podcast, I usually finish with something that's genuinely good value. Sometimes it'll be a tool, a product, sometimes a classic car, or simply a bargain that I've spotted. So this is the section called Dino's Deal of the Week, and or Deals of the Week. So I hunt for deals, and I pop them at the bottom of the page. So please check them out. So the question I'm asked is, Dino, is my car worth restoring? My question is, well, why are you restoring it? If it's simply because of money, use your head. If it belonged to your father, your family, your mother, or if it's something that a car you've dreamed of owning since you were a child, use your heart. The internet can tell you what a car is worth. It can't tell you what it's worth to you. So, upon those wise words of wisdom, I'd like to thank you for listening to Dino Under the Bonnet. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a comment. I genuinely like to know, and I do respond to people. And what's the one car you'd like to restore, regardless of costs, and why? So, what's my closing words? Go with your heart if the budget can afford it, because it'll be a great thing to have. Okay, you've been listening to Dino Under the Bonnet. I look forward to speaking again. Thank you very much for getting to the end, if you have. And see you again next week. Thank you and goodbye.